Hello and welcome back. Friends, if you follow the channel, you know my friend Dan scored this mystery computer at an amateur radio flea market back in summer of 2025. It came with a sticky note saying it was a TRS-80, but boy, this sure is not like a TRS-80 I've ever seen. Sure, it looks homebrew, and it sure is a mystery. So we began the journey of making sense of this massive unit. This is part 4 in this series, and I'm truly sorry it took me so long to publish this update. What can I say? Between day job, family, and repair projects, sometimes there's more work to do than there are hours in the day. And today's episode was a particularly tough nut to crack. I recommend watching the first 3 parts to get caught up. Link up here and in the description below. In part 1, we took a first look of what this unit could be. In part 2, we looked at the power supply to see if it has any hope of ever working again. And in part 3, we decoded some ROMs, see if we could lift the mystery if this computer really is a TRS-80, and we found a number of surprises. Guys, if you like my kind of content, allow me to tell you that as of summer of 2026, I'm not monetized. Making these videos is a lot of fun, but it takes a lot of time and effort. So if you enjoy them, please consider hopping over to retrobytemeister.com. You can book repair services or shop retail equipment of new old stock items or freshly and professionally restored computers, consoles, and more. Every dollar you spend goes into the work I do and feeds back to the retro computing community. Or you can scan here and click the link below to buy me a coffee. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you. In today's episode, we want to figure out the backplane and the CPU board of this mystery machine. And like I said, it was a tough nut to crack. It took quite some time. But a good place to start is perhaps to explain the structural aspects of the components. The computer is built using 3 AuGAT 8136 wire wrap prototype boards. If I'm not mistaken, then these are 12-gauge boards. For those of you who don't know, on the top of the board is little more than power and ground buses and a bunch of socket holes where the IC chips go, and that are connected to long pins on the back where wire is tightly getting wrapped around. The prototype board also has a 120 pin connector, which I'm pretty sure is an AuGAT 14005. I believe the type of bus that accepts this connector is a VME backplane or something similar. It looks a little bit like an Apple Macintosh new bus, but the pitch is quite different. Either way, the computer has 4 such connector slots. So 2 units wide by 2 units high, with 1 slot empty when we got the computer. The backplane is actually custom and quite a bit larger than standard VME. I guess to ensure that the form factor of the prototype cards fit better. The connector pins are arranged in 3 rows of 40 pins each, and unhelpfully, the AuGAT 14005 connector just numbers the pins from 1 in the upper left to 120 in the lower right corner. For this project, and to make drawing the schematic easier, let us refer to pins 1 through 40 as row A, pins 41 through 80 as row B, and pins 81 through 120 as row C, with each consisting of 40 pin columns. So to figure out the backplane, Dan started by taking a look at where the power rails might go. In his words, he wanted to make sure the rails go to reasonable places on the board and wanted to see if the backplane is actually designed with some foresight. It turns out it was. Ground can be found on columns 1 and 40 in all 3 rows. Moreover, there are several ground connections peppered across the backplane, almost like the GPIO ground pins on a Raspberry Pi. Sensibly, we can find VCC, so the plus 5 volt rail, on columns 3 and 38, leaving 1 mostly unconnected column of pins between it and ground. Finally, we can find the negative 5 volt rail, VEE, and the plus 12 volt rail, VDD, on columns 35 and 33 respectively, each leaving an empty column of pins between rails. Pretty clever. That was the easy part. Now to the tedious work of finding the signals that are exchanged over the bus. If the builder of this computer designed this reasonably, then I assume they would exchange address and data lines gated by bus transceivers as well as some control signals between the different boards. Now the original TRS-80 schematic consists of two sheets, with sheet 1 covering CPU, RAM and ROM, as well as control signals and keyboard, and sheet 2 covering clock and video generation, as well as cassette I/O and power. Now, we have a separate video card and what I believe to be an I/O card that came with the computer, so I had a hunch the Backpane would carry the signals outlined on the schematics. So for the next hours, days, and in fact weeks, I got to work and traced out these signals, which led me to almost entirely reverse engineer the CPU board and replicate the wiring on some KiCad schematics. My aim was to create a hybrid representation that would allow us to understand the structure of the CPU board, its layout, as well as its wiring. Since I thoroughly suck at KiCad though, here's the best I could come up with. Sorry in advance. The CPU board is structured as follows. Of course, we have a CPU. And just like the original TRS-80, we have several 74 LS367 hex buffers. We have some ROMs, obviously, and not just 8, but 16 RAM chips. The RAM chips are MuPD416C, 16 kilobit dynamic RAM. Hey guys, quick note from the editing room here. I'm just noticing that this means this computer has 32 kilobyte of RAM altogether. Considering the original TRS-80 had either 4 or 16K of RAM, I thought that was remarkable. Anyways, carry on. RAM and ROM share their own two 367 buffers, as well as two 2-to-1 multiplexers. Just like the TRS-80 Model 1, there are two 74LS368 bus drivers for the keyboard, along with inverters gating the address lines. The keyboard connector lives on this free space here just below the resistor that I haven't quite finished tracing out yet. Other parts on this board include some passive components, logic gates, and two 74LS74 dual latches. Now, one of the free latches is involved with clock generation on the TRS-80 board, but is somehow unused in this one. In fact, the clock generation circuit departs a great deal from the TRS-80 schematics, so much so that I have not yet fully figured it out yet. Maybe this is owed to the fact that we have another video board, and video needs their own clock generation, right? So maybe some part happens there? We will find out in a future episode. Some active and passive components are as of yet omitted in the reverse engineered schematics. I am fairly sure they have to do with bus governance and memory selection, so I would expect them to be almost identical to the TRS-80 schematics. We do have some unused gates. A cursory comparison with the TRS-80 OG schematic suggests that these are mostly the same as the ones left unused by the OG TRS-80. But it could also be that I simply haven't found their endpoints yet. One thing is for certain. If the gates are in fact unused, the builder did not follow the best practices and tie unused inputs to ground. Guys, the CPU board is pretty clever. From what I found so far, the control signals are in fact electrically equivalent in most cases down to the exact pin of an IC. However, address lines and data lines are not electrically equivalent to the TRS-80. The builder took quite some liberty in the routing of address lines and data lines, so some of them go to different pins on the same hex buffer, or to different hex buffers altogether compared to the Tandy schematics. But that's fine. After all, the fact that 3 is between 2 and 4 is completely arbitrary. As long as the swap is consistent across boards and the selection logic is the same, it should work just fine. My guess is the builder took the easiest path while wire wrapping, which is why we have so many crossing lines, which are curiously also reflected in my reverse engineered schematics. even though I made an effort to make it look neat and nice. But this leads to a rather weird bus connector and backplane layout. Recall that there are 2 ground rails, and some other ground connections are distributed across the ground plane. Conveniently, the data bus lines are located next to one another, but the bit order is rather imaginative. Address lines live here on the bus, and the control signal bus is distributed in between. Ground connections and the 3 buses then occupy 2 rows by 19 pins on the backplane. A 40-pin ribbon connector carries those signals between all 3 boards and 4 slots inside the computer, as well as some external bus connectors. Let me superimpose the power rails we figured out earlier, and also add a connection to one of the mystery switches that we traced back to the reset signal. This is called switch 2 in the TRS-80 schematics. This gives us an almost complete picture of the backplane. But we are not done yet. As we can see, row A is still mostly unknown, and also when we first opened up the computer we saw a number of mystery connectors going to row A as well as columns 24 through 32. And I don't know what they do, yet. Are they connections specific to one of the other 2 boards, perhaps the floppy controller? Recall how there are external bus connectors on the computer. Which signals go there? Where's the video output? Which of the ports is the cassette port? And does this computer indeed have a floppy controller? Stay tuned for the next episode. Guys, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you need anything repaired, restored, or modded, call your boy RetroByteMeister at retrobytemeister.com. Thanks for watching. Bye.